I was gonna say, all that being said, though, man, there was a fight this weekend that didn't require a judge,
No,
and that's Janibek versus the Australian.
Andre Mikhailovich.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Janibek.
Russian blooded, Australian adopted. Yeah,
Yeah, Janibek looks strong.
yeah, he did. He's got a hell of a left hand. And Mikhailovich made him work on the inside. It was a little bit of, that's not where Janibek's strong suit is on the inside. And a lot of times, Mikhailovich smothered him in this fight, got some work done in this fight, showed a lot of grit, but technically, this was a man versus a boy, is what I saw in the fight. And I don't mean that from a literal sense. I mean from a technical and skills and experience standpoint, pedigree standpoint.
Uh-huh.
Because in terms of heart, Andre Mikhailovich was all man. Like that fight looked like it should have been over by the end of the second round. And he would throw his lead right hand and then just smother. Lead right hand against the southpaw, smother. And then as the fight went on, and he was so outgunned at range, he didn't even throw the lead right hand to get in. He just did whatever he could to get inside, smother that left-handed Janibek. Actually got some work done, and it was a little surprising the fight went as long as it did because Janibek doesn't love to fight on the inside. He wanted the ref to break him apart. Ref wasn't doing that because they were in Australia. They were in they were in New Zealand, excuse me. They were in New Zealand.
Right.
But, you know, Janibek event, he did show some good work on the inside and then got him at range again and finished him off. Referee did a good job stopping the fight. Mikhailovich took a lot of punishment in this fight, but he did show a lot of grit and a lot of gumption, but just technically completely outgunned, especially at range, at mid or long range. And so the only place he could be safe was up close, smothering Janibek. So,
Yeah.
good stuff by Janibek.
Yeah, man, a really good fight from Janibek. And the other side of that, listen, two things. Number one, a lot of people didn't know this mandatory challenger, and so that kind of plays into a lot of people like, oh well, we don't know that guy. He's not one of the big names, but he did what he was supposed to do with that guy that we don't know that doesn't have the big name. Furthermore, he put a stamp on what he's been able to deliver to us time and time again. He's a big southpaw, strong, and has a very powerful left hand, and as we can see, very skillful and knowledgeable in the game. So, what I really would like to see these guys do is get busy and stay busy, no matter who it is. Brian Kenny, I had a conversation with Brian Kenny when we were working Fox. And I gotta be honest, I wasn't trying to hear what he was saying at that point in time because I had a game plan and I was set with what I was doing. At that point in time, I hadn't fought Arrow yet. And what are you gonna do? And I said, I'm waiting on this Arrow fight. He said, Champ, don't wait on that fight. He said, just stay busy. And he named all these 80s fighters that no matter who it was, they were staying busy and they were still getting paid. It wasn't the big money. And he said, you can't worry about the big money. He said, just get back in there. The more people see you, the more people, will come accustomed to who you are and what you're doing. It made so much sense, but I had a game plan. And of course, that Arrow fight came like pretty soon after. He didn't know that, and I wasn't gonna tell him, hey, we're almost done, making this fight happen. But it stuck with me because he's right. In a sport that fighters are seldom seen, the more you're seen, the bigger impact you have in the sport, and ultimately the more fans you have once you're out of the ring. Prime example, Ryan Garcia. We know the following he has. His following follows him when he gets out of the ring. And they've been following him when he got out of the ring for a long time because of the things he was able to display on his social media. Fighters that don't have that social media following, you got to stay more active. You got to get back in the ring. I didn't tell him I was going to do this, but I'm just going to do it. I text Frank Martin yesterday just to check on him, see how he was doing. Small little conversation. I said, yo, man, you got to get back in the ring. And he's like, yeah, that was the plan, but it's looking like first quarter now. And I'm sorry, Frank, if I'm divulging information that I shouldn't. But I have to make this point. He wants to get back in the ring. The business of boxing just isn't allowing it to happen. But when you get in the ring with someone such as Tank Davis, there's a magnifying glass over you. Now, here's the thing, and please follow me with this analogy because it just came to me. You're under that magnifying glass, the light is hitting that glass, and Tank does what he does, and boom, you burn up on that night. But the thing is, you're just crispy, but you still have relevancy, you still have a name. The sooner you can get in the ring, people are saying what? Oh, that's the guy that Tank just knocked out. So what? Let them say that's the guy that Tank just knocked out. The bottom line is they recognize you.
They know who you are. Yeah.
You know who you
You
are.
got to capitalize on that while they still link you to that moment. Like
Exactly.
Jaime
Because
Munguia just did with Canelo. He just fought Eric
exactly.
Bazanian. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, Frank Martin is not a Jaime, so people don't know his name. So they're going to be saying, "Oh, that's the guy that Tank knocked out." You get back in the ring against whomever, and you do what you do, how you do it,
Get a
and
guy
people
out of there.
exactly. And you say, and people are saying, "Oh, that's Frank Martin.
Frank
He got
Martin.
knocked out, but that was a great fight. I want to see him again." You know what I mean? You
Yep.
have to capitalize on moments.
100%. I mean, Azuma Nelson, he loses to Salvador Sanchez and then stays active, becomes a legend in his own right in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
It's
And
a fine
again,
line. You got to deal with health. You got to deal with decompressing from a long training camp, and you got to deal with where's my hunger level and all these other things, especially when you lose, and especially when you lose by a TKO or something along those lines. But the way I look at it, if I was Frank Martin, the way I look at it, I would have been back in the ring this month. And I knew when I texted him he wasn't getting in the ring this month. But the further away you get away from that fight or a big fight, the further away you get away from all of the fans that you just that could become fans of yours.
yeah, because for Jaime Munguia, it worked out well. He got an exciting knockout on ESPN, and maybe Frank would jump at that kind of opportunity. It's just not being presented to him right now,
Yeah,
to be fair to Frank, right?
yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could speak to it better. Maybe it requires a degree of humility where, hey, I was just fighting on the biggest stage possible. Now I'm fighting a guy no one's heard of in Bazinian and not fighting at T-Mobile, not fighting in Vegas, not fighting in California, fighting in Arizona
yeah,
on an ESPN card. But that wound up not getting his. Well, you know what? I think Sandy, the girls might have outdrew that card,
mm,
but Munguia resonated with his fan base. The Mexican fan gave them an exciting fight. They got to see him again, and he won.
mm-hmm.
So he's in business. He's good. He's got Edgar Berlanga calling him out for a big fight.
Yeah,
He's got options now. He's straight. Now, those options would probably dwindle and get less lucrative if he can't turn around and get back in that ring quickly. But
yeah,
again, to be fair to Frank, he's probably not being really presented too many opportunities to really jump on that. But to your point, I think part of what you're saying is if they're only offering you an undercard bout on the Tank pay-per-view, or if Benavidez and Morel are going to fight on a pay-per-view, or if Errol Spence and Fedora, just take it, right? I mean, get back in there. But
easier said than done.
it is,
And
especially. But
again, when you're making a certain purse and that purse
yep,
isn't the same, and I'm not gonna say any names, but I know fighters personally that held out because the purse wasn't big enough, and held out because the name don't match the purse. If that's the purse you want, this the name you gotta have. And it's like, oh, and I know personally, you find fighters that are trying to juggle making a lot of money fighting a lesser opponent or risking fighting a better opponent and making that money, but possibly coming up short. So it's a fine line. I get it. But obviously the bottom line and the moral to all this is fighters need to be busier. You're not fighting every week like NFL, NBA. And the busier you are within reason, of course, you should be. I mean, Jaime is the perfect example of that. There's
he
there's
is.
no better
What he did
example.
this year. Yeah,
There's no better
how
example.
you do it.
Yeah. Oh.
Janet, but Janibek, he is by most accounts, I would agree, he's the best middleweight in boxing right now.
Yeah, it looks like.
But he's kind of got to settle for the Larry Holmes thing, the Donald Curry, Marlon Starling thing, where it's like you're the man of the division, no one questions it. And by the way, Larry Holmes, one of the greatest heavyweights ever. But I'm
Yeah.
not saying Janibek is Larry Holmes. He's
Yeah,
not. No
yeah,
offense
yeah.
to Janibek.
There's nobody there.
But there's nobody there. There's not a lot of talent in the division, or if there is talent, it's not famous. It's not household name talent. And so you, as the top dog in a division like that, get a little underappreciated. People feel like you're a big fish in a small pool. And the other champions, Erislandy Lara, Carlos Adames, that's not making anybody go, oh, I gotta see that. Him and Adames, because Lara is, I mean, I know Lara just stopped Danny, but him and Adames is probably the fight that would determine who's the definitely the best middleweight in the world. But a lot of the fans, Sean, they want to see him fight his mandatory Hamza Shiraz. Shiraz, who's got that long range offense, very sharp on the outside, very active on the outside, and not.
I'm not that high on him.
Well, okay, I was going to get to that part where he's more active than Janibek. He throws more combinations than Janibek, but he's not as savvy and crafty at that long range that he throws those combinations at as Janibek is.
Yeah.
But I think Janibek, even against Mikhailovich, against Denzel Bentley from the UK, he shows he does prefer his fights at a certain pace, at a certain distance. And Shiraz, who fights at that distance he likes, but doesn't fight at the pace he likes.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying.
Right. And so that's what makes that fight interesting.
I hear you. I hear you.